So when I beat Resident Evil 3 for the first time, I realized something. Resident Evil 3 is the best Alien film in years. Now, that statement might be kind of confusing at first, but let me elaborate on that. So, Alien was established as a horror thriller that was based around character connections at first. We had the blue-collar workers working alongside Ripley and the Weyland-Yutani cyborg. And from there, once they start to get killed off by the alien, we really feel something because we connected with those characters. They had emotions and thoughts. And by the time of Aliens, there's a dynamic established where Ripley is going after the xenomorph to kill it once and for all, to make sure that nothing like that ever happens ever again. And there's a certain dynamic that is forged in that scenario where Ripley is going after the alien and the alien is coming after her as well. And it's a kind of a sick game of tag when you think about it. But there's this personal connection now with Ripley and the xenomorph where you have the xenomorph kind of having this grudge against her, and that dynamic was what really brought life to the Alien franchise. Now, by the time of Alien Covenant and the previous film Prometheus, a lot of that personal connection wasn't there. You have a grandiose setting in Prometheus with all this talk of humanity, but even still, that humanity isn't really there. The characters are pretty two-dimensional. That also goes for Alien Covenant, where the characters are kind of dim-witted, and they're very event-driven. They're not really given a lot of personal stakes, really. Like, you have, superficially, you have like their husbands and wives there, but you don't really feel that connection. That's something established at the beginning of the film. But something that surprised me with Resident Evil 3 Remake, what that did was establish this really great dynamic between Nemesis and Jill. Because at the beginning of the game, Nemesis is more of a faceless bad guy. He wears a big black mask over his face, and there's no real connection there. And that's kind of mirroring Jill's separation from Nemesis. But as that relationship becomes more like intimate, or more personal, that's a better word for it, you have this dynamic that's established of her being his target, not simply for the mission, but it seems like he might actually have a grudge after, you know, she drives into him with a car and throws him off a parking garage. And it's at that moment after the parking garage where his mask is burned off and you see his visage there, which I think marks the point where it becomes personal. And a lot like Alien, there's this personal dynamic between Nemesis and Jill Valentine that mirrors the rivalry between Ripley and the alien. But of course, we know that there's actually something worse than the alien, which is the alien queen. So if we move into that territory, we also now have something that mirrors that in Resident Evil 3, which is the stage 2 Nemesis, when he evolves from being burned after the train wreck and he goes into the water and his body's morphed and contorted into this animalistic being. So much like how Ripley, her expectations were, you know, thrown out once she saw the alien queen, so is Jill Valentine's expectations when she sees Nemesis turn into this dog creature. So we have this escalation there, which is something that Prometheus and Covenant don't really have. at least not to the extent where it feels like so grandiose and personal. And so what Resident Evil 3 does really well is it actually puts the character in a very low point after this fight. Jill is spiked with the virus strain from Nemesis after she defeats him, and she goes into a certain type of coma. And this marks the very lowest point for the character, and it kind of mirrors like when Ripley is in the alien hive and she's trying to rescue Newt. It's very dark and hopeless and terrifying. But then in Aliens, you kind of have that resolve and that will to save Newt. And this is kind of mirrored once Jill wakes up, when she realizes, like, you know, I need to help Carlos. I need to go and, you know, kill Nemesis and get the vaccine. So she goes down into the Umbrella Nest facility. At least I think it's the Nest facility. I'm not quite sure about that. And that kind of marks the moment of transition from fear to certitude and determination to stop this. So when she goes down there, she encounters Nemesis again, but rather than fighting him and feeling a overwhelming sense of fear, it's a drive to, you know, kill him, take him out, get rid of him, which is a lot like what Ripley feels when she's finally confronting the alien queen. She just says, you know, get away from her, you bitch, and then she just, you know, flames him or her. So Jill has that same type of drive, and then we have the stage 2 or the stage 3 of Nemesis. After you defeat Nemesis, you fill the entire area with a vat of acid, and you think that vat of acid is going to take it out for good. And for a while it does. It melts, it deteriorates, it gets destroyed. But then later on, something surprising happens. Before I get to that, though, I would also like to bring attention to, like, after Ripley thinks she defeats the alien queen, or at least gets away from it, turns out the alien queen is actually hiding underneath the landing gear. And much like how the alien queen made a surprise appearance at the end of the film, Nemesis actually comes back in its largest form ever. And this is the final confrontation, and Resident Evil 3 does it so well, where there's so much emotion in it, because you have Jill, you know, taking out the railgun, and she's gonna, you know, kill Nemesis, and there's so much, like, power to that. And then it's also like that when Ripley blows the alien queen out of the airlock. It's much as the same as that. So once you defeat the Nemesis, there's this, like, overwhelming sense of euphoria and just release that I haven't felt since, you know, Aliens. I mean, Alien 3 didn't do it, Prometheus didn't do it, Resurrection certainly didn't do it, Alien Covenant didn't do it, but this game, like, invoked that same feeling that I got, and it was so good. So that's really what I wanted to convey here, that Resident Evil 3 Remake is just the best Alien film in years. And I hope that if you haven't played it, you really should, because it is just the most satisfying game that I've played in a while, just by its use of blending not only story but gameplay, and turning this Nemesis character from just a character into its own gameplay mechanic, which is a very, like a arm of the game. It's huge to the game, and it just makes you feel that same connection that Jill does, but you're seeing it through gameplay. So that's really all I had to talk about today. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and like, subscribe, dislike if you want to. Any feedback is great, and have a great day.